This is P1 listener James Elliott, and you're watching the X Factor podcast. Now go be different or be invisible.
Welcome, everybody, to the X Factor podcast. I am your courageous co-host. Riding shotgun next to me is he now insists on being referred to as the Almighty Jon Rennie,
I
John
like
S.
that.
Rennie. He insists that I give him free shout outs on his own podcast. Follow him on Twitter at John S. Rennie, where he is having an epic Twitter beef with another Twitter user.
Yes.
At the Coach Randall is the guy's name. I have no idea what their story is. I'll let John explain. But a little, two housekeeping issues. Number one, this podcast is brought to you by our friends at Bottom Gun Coffee. BottomGunCoffee.com is your place to go to get the flavor of the season. Because
Yes.
is the season, it's that time of year. Go to Bottom Gun Coffee and get yourself some pumpkin spice latte, some of their pumpkin spice blend. And you can make your own latte, which I like a whole latte. It is my favorite time of year right now. If you're listening to this sort of in real time, it is fall of 2021, where
Yes.
people like me tend to break out their infinity scarves, their yoga pants, Lululemon preferably, no free shout outs, Lululemon, and their Ugg boots. And their leather Han Solo vests that they wear over their very fashionably tended to flannel shirts. Because 'tis the season. It's pumpkin spice latte season, folks. Get with the program. Go to bottomguncoffee.com. Tell Bill Mosier that Coach Bruce sent you.
It seems a little hot for
Hot?
pumpkin spice latte season. It's still
It's just
like
because
100
you're looking
degrees.
into my eyes through. We're on Zoom right now recording this, and it might feel a little hot in there because you're looking into my eyes.
No, it's not that.
Hang on, John.
It's global warming.
No, for people who are not watching on YouTube, you do not fully appreciate this because our interim producer, this is what I'm referring to him now permanently as, our interim producer, Parker the DFE, has as his Zoom background a very, very handsome picture of me in my most GQ sort of pose and outfit. So John has been staring deeply into my eyes in Parker's Zoom background. That's what I was referring to.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
And it's like that you're getting a double dose of me live and in living color, and then also the Zoom background. I find it interesting. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. Parker, in his handsome collared shirt, is striking the same pose that I am in his background, which is further proof that while he has his head squarely up your ass, he secretly wants to be like me.
He does. He does. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, that's really the question.
Anyone in their right mind, I think, is the correct answer, Alex. I'll take that
Awesome.
for 500.
Awesome.
What is anyone in their right mind? So that was the first housekeeping issue. Go to Bottom Gun Coffee, get some pumpkin spice, and the second housekeeping issue. We need to downshift into serious mode here, Jr.
What's that?
Do you want to tell them, or should I?
Well, you can introduce it.
All right. So we've been having issues with Parker, who's been instructed to remain silent. So his secret form of passive-aggressive retaliation is to put up smart Zoom backgrounds because he's been muted. So anyway, we had struggles with the young man. John refuses to fire him. I wanted to fire him. Our P1 listeners all want him canceled, with the exception of Dan Lawrence, who I can't help but think like somehow gets community service hours for supporting Parker through all this. And he probably also like wants to save the manatees. He probably does not kill insects in his home. He safely captures them and releases them outside, I bet. He's probably into beekeeping because he thinks if we save the bee population, the world won't die. But anyway, Dan Lawrence is the only one not on board with the hashtag cancel Parker movement, which let's just say, Dan, if you're listening, which I know you are because you listen to all of our episodes on your commute, I'm profoundly disappointed. I've lost total disrespect for you. Anyway.
And I'm just the opposite. I think it's great. I think it's great to support. I mean, I said this the other day. It's like spanking a puppy. You can't spank a puppy. Puppies are too cute.
No, but you can get one of those shock collars where you have the remote and you zap them into compliance.
Not a puppy. You can do that with an adult dog, but not a puppy.
We're going to argue about this all day, and that kind of brings me to my next point. Is this got so bad? John and I went to mediation.
We did.
We're about to break up, not a break up, which is more serious than a break. Like Ross and what's her name, Rachel, were on a break. This would be a breakup where we wouldn't have an X Factor podcast because John let Parker come between us. And kind of frankly made me feel like the other woman, John. That's what I told our therapist.
You did?
Yeah. So anyway, part of the mediation agreement was Parker would be, he would not be canceled or as the listeners wanted. He would not be fired as I wanted. He would be put on a performance improvement plan. Yes. And John, I'll let you explain. I'm going to let you take it from here because frankly, I think any performance out of that kid would be an improvement over what we've seen. So I'll let you update the listeners as to what exactly all of this has meant the last couple of weeks and how you allege he has straightened up and started to fly right.
Well, I wouldn't give him credit for completely straightening up and flying right, but we did meet with HR, and HR recommended that we do a performance improvement plan. So over the next 30 days, Parker is on double secret probation, which means that anything that we feel is unacceptable for his, from a performance standpoint, is in violation of that probation. So
the problem is that would actually imply that you have standards for the kid.
Yeah, well, I do. I mean, I think he's earning his pay, to be frank.
Look at him nodding in agreement. Just the puppet.
I think he's worth every penny.
It's really hard to see with the way he's seated. It's really hard to see you with your hand like on his back, pulling the strings, getting him to nod in agreement. But I know it's happening. The listeners do too. You've been exposed, John.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's earned his keep. For what we pay
he's a
him,
keeper, all right.
For what we pay him, he's delivered exactly what we expected. It's worth every penny.
So I've also been instructed by our therapist not to
don't react.
Don't overreact. Don't be so judgmental. Be gentle.
Yeah.
And not quite so critical.
Right.
So we're going to crowdsource all of my feedback. Any of you have any complaints about him, don't email me. Email the show. Because
yes,
the podcast inbox, our mediator, HR, now has access to the podcast inbox. So feel free to have no filter in what you have to say. I'll just leave it at that. That is,
yes,
that's sort of the behind the scenes look at the X Factor podcast today. And to begin the show, this episode number, what number is it, Parker? Hold your fingers up. Don't unmute yourself. You're not allowed to speak. Just hold your fingers up. Parker, don't talk. Hold your fingers up.
Here.
Good. It's episode 41, if I'm not mistaken, which I usually am mistaken.
Yeah, we seem to get that wrong every time. 42, he says.
42.
42.
He had to count with his fingers
Hmm.
and toes twice and then some to get to that. X Factor Friends is the name of the show, and
Yeah.
the topic du jour, which is a big word for the topic of the day.
Yes.
And there's a reason why we're doing X Factor Friends today, and I am going to pull up some information on my X Factor friend. I want to make sure I get some dates right. So while I do that, John, since we basically don't have a helpful show producer. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? Um, do when I proposed this topic, who was the
Yes.
person that immediately came to mind?
In my life, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, who's your X Factor friend?
Well, it's someone I'm going to talk about when I get to my turn, but it's someone I've known since freshman year in college, and someone I've been friends with ever since then. So
Was this a
through
toss up? Did you have to do like a pros and cons list of a bunch of different people, or did you just know right away, hey, it's this guy?
no, for me it was that guy,
Okay.
100%. Only because from longevity standpoint, I've known him longer than I've known my wife, which and I've been married for 30 years. So
God bless her.
that's yeah. Well, she's not a quitter, that's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
Glutton for punishment, yes. Quitter, no.
yeah, exactly. So
So, yeah, the person I wanted to pay tribute to is actually someone who recently passed away, August 19th. An X Factor friend of mine passed away. So, what I'd really like to do to honor his memory is, just share a little bit with on the pod about him, and to start with just a short moment of silence. We're not going to have a minute of dead air because that's professional. You know, that's professional neglect on a podcast or behind a radio mic. But just a moment of silence, and there you have it. And I'm paying tribute today to X Factor friend Jack Cayley. Jack was born on December 18th, 1937, passed away from cancer. Fuck cancer, by the way. He passed away from cancer on August 9th. Don't bleep that out either, Parker, because I think that's allowed when you're referring to cancer. That F bomb's allowed. He passed away on August 19th, 2021, if you're, depending on when you're listening to this. Anyway, he's 83. He lived a very, very full life. How did I know him? Well, we coached against each other as college lacrosse coaches. And this is a guy who's just absolutely done it all. Kind of the short version of his career, if you want, like the quick bulleted points. I knew him when he was I met him when he was the head men's lacrosse coach at New York Institute of Technology. He had a career record there of 185 and 33, which is good for the highest winning percentage in all of Division One and Division Two sports. And he won 4 NCAA championships there in 1997, 2003, 2005, 2008. He's a member of, I believe, 5 different Halls of Fame: National Lacrosse Hall of Fame, the East Coast Conference Hall of Fame, the Long Island Metropolitan Lacrosse Hall of Fame, and the Sewanaka High School Hall of Fame. So just think about like legacy and how accomplished the man's career is. He coached over 50 years, and 85% was his winning percentage at New York Tech, which is just incredible by any standard. And this is a guy who was he took over at New York Tech. They hadn't had a program for like 30 years. And when he took the job, they didn't have a field. They didn't have any lacrosse goals. They didn't have any equipment. They didn't have any players. Like, he was starting something from scratch. They didn't have a locker room. He had no office. He literally had nothing to sell. And this is the kind of the X factor lesson in all this was uh, he did that when I was a fifth year senior in college, and we scrimmaged New York Tech when I was at Fairleigh Dickinson as I was a graduate assistant at the time, and that was their first year, and they beat us pretty good. Their second year, again, no field, no locker room, no nothing when he arrived. In just their second year, they're in the national championship game,
Wow.
which is wild. They didn't win it that year. A couple of years later, 4 years later, 6 years into a program, he wins a national title. One of several. But this is a guy who did all that, and he was completely blind in one eye. The X Factor lesson with all this is he built something from nothing because people were sold on him. They weren't sold on the school. It's an average school. It's not unlike any other Division II school on Long Island or anywhere else. It just had far less in terms of facilities and amenities. They were sold on him. He was an absolute personality. He was a force of nature, and just was really someone who was a student of the game, no matter how much he won and how much he knew. And if you were hanging out in the hallway during the national convention, and he was on his way into one of the sessions, he would grab you by the arm and drag you in with him to make sure you weren't missing out on something. You weren't maximizing every educational opportunity you had. If there was someone talking about lacrosse anywhere, he would go there and try and learn from them, regardless of how young, old, experienced, inexperienced they were. Somebody that embraced a lot of alternate perspectives and saw things through a very different lens. And I imagine literally and figuratively, when you're blind in one eye, you literally see everything through a very different vantage point and point of view and lens than the rest of us. But the amazing thing, one of the amazing things with him was, and this is very X Factor. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you know that we're a big believer in take whatever everybody else is doing and do the exact opposite, and you're probably going to get a great result. And where he did that more than anything was he used a zone defense, specifically a backer zone defense. Now, typically, zone defenses are used when you're outmanned, you're outmatched, you're not good enough to play man-to-man. But what he did was he used a backer zone defense and was very aggressive with it. Even when he wasn't outmanned or outmatched, he used a backer zone defense. He didn't play man-to-man. And now the fascinating thing with that is he was the toughest team to prepare for because everyone else, for the most part, played man-to-man defense. You're used to practicing every day against a man-to-man defense. And then you had to completely change your game plan, your scout. You had to change everything you did, and you had to try and replicate what he was doing to prepare for him. And, whenever I scheduled him, I never wanted to play 2 games that week or the week leading up to playing him because it took you a good week just to prepare for New York Tech and for Jack Cayley's backer zone. And it's just a classic example of X Factor. Take the opposite of what everyone else is doing, and you're going to get a great result. Everyone played man-to-man. He played a zone. And at most zones tend to be by their very nature passive because you're outmanned, you're outmatched. He played a zone. He made it super aggressive. They were trapping, double teaming, just absolutely pressuring out on you the second you crossed midfield at times. It was an art and a science as a coach, I can tell you. And I remember early in my career, my first year that we played them, obviously that zone gave everybody fits. But the summer after we played them, I had approached him. I said, hey, coach, feel free to say no to this. And if I were you, I probably would say no to this because we schedule each other, we play each other every year. There could be national championship or playoff ramifications for you. I'd love for you to teach me, the ins and outs of your zone defense. I would love to, try and incorporate some of what you do with my program. But, I know that that's probably not in your best interest. It's very much in my best interest. He's like, oh, no, that's fine. I'm happy to, John. And he takes out, his planner, and he's like, when do you want to meet? Block off 2 days. And I thought he said, let's block off today. And I'm like, today? And he's like, 2 days. It'll take you 2 days just to start to kind of wrap your mind around what we do. I'm like, okay. So he gave me 2 entire work days, full days, to teach me on film and on the whiteboard how he does what he does. This absolutely was not in his best interest, professionally or personally. And I told him, I said, are you sure you want to do this? He said, yeah. And here's another X Factor lesson. You can copy somebody's plan, and this is in any industry, but if you don't have their personnel, you're not really copying what they do.
Right.
Now, you can have the playbook, but that doesn't mean you can execute it. I can be full disclosure with you about what we do, but you actually have to find a way to incorporate it and make it work for you. And most people would love to see, give us a peek behind the curtain, at your manufacturing plant, John. And you could show them trade secrets, but they'd actually have to get off their ass, put in the work, and find a way to incorporate it into what they do. Most people won't do that. So he cared more about helping a young coach improve and educating people and mentoring than he cared about, there could be a downside for me. And it was a great lesson to me. He's like, I'm not going to show you how to recruit or how we recruit, because as long as I have better players than you, I don't. It doesn't matter if you know everything there is to know about my zone. You still won't be able to beat us because you win with people. And as you know, John, leadership is a people business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is absolutely my favorite Jack Cayley story. I could tell 100 stories like that about my friend. And, there's just a great tribute to him on social media from a lot of lacrosse coaches across all divisions with very interesting stories just about how he's one of a kind and just compassionate, considerate, and courageous are 3 of the words that describe him best, according to his one of his former players, and his name is Rich Donovan. He played for Jack at East Meadow High School and then coached alongside him with the German national team. But yeah, I would echo that same sentiment. And I think any great leader is compassionate, considerate, and courageous. And you think about the courage it takes to be different than everyone else, to do the opposite of what everyone else is doing, because they're going to think you're nuts. You don't run a zone defense and get aggressive with it. You get aggressive with man-to-man defense. No. So he didn't listen to the skeptics. He did his thing, and he made it work to the tune of 5 national championships. He coached the German national team, and he gave every single team on his schedule absolute fits. So shout out Jack Cayley. Love you, buddy. May you rest in peace. And thank you for being an X Factor friend. Jon Rennie.
Yeah.
You have an X Factor friend from college.
I do, but I just want to say one thing. It's interesting. Jack actually wrote the book on lacrosse. He actually has a book called Lacrosse Essentials that is on Amazon today. You can find it. And so the guy, he's in the Hall of Fame. You can look him up. Incredible guy, incredible coach, and obviously made a big impact on the game and on everyone that either had to play against him or played for him, he made an impact on him. So that's really incredible. Yeah, I saw some of the tributes you were posting on Twitter, but incredible guy. And isn't it nice when you get a chance to, have, kind of be around greatness? I think it's a great, and not only that is that you were self-aware, or you were aware enough to know that you were next to greatness during that time. So
And that's a guy who could have gone on to coach at a higher level. He decided, he chose to remain at Division II. He really kind of felt like that's where the real work is, small college level. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, because never was, I don't think ego was even in his vocabulary. He had every right to have an ego, and he was very selfless and generous.
Yeah, I mean, the definition of leadership is, there's a lot of definitions, but one of the things I've heard that I like is that, you become a leader not to make money, but to make a difference. And it sounds like he made a difference in the game. He made a difference in his players. He made a difference in the world that was around him, right? He wasn't looking for the biggest paycheck. He was looking for the biggest impact. And that's what he did. And that's, sometimes leaders get lost and they think that they should be chasing big bonus checks and fancy offices and fancy cars and what have you. But really, it's about what is the impact you're making on others. And he sounds like a guy that made an impact on everyone he was around.
Absolutely. Speaking of fancy offices, JR.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Hey, I got a podcast studio. How about that?
Cue up the Jefferson's theme song. We're moving on up.
I'm moving on up. It's only half done. I'm starting to work on it. My flag from the Sasquatch Flag Company hasn't arrived yet, so that's where it's going to go. I'm waiting for that. But yeah, so we've upgraded a little bit. I kicked my boys out of the house, and I've got 2 extra rooms, so I figured I'd make a podcast studio.
And the Golden Retrievers have their own room now?
Oh, no, they are locked out of it because Marley has some serious gas today, and it is just awful. So she is
that extra bedroom. That's their room, not your office.
100%. They are locked in there with their gas, whatever it is. So yeah, she's extra gassy this morning, so that's why she's out there. Yeah. That's great. So yeah, X Factor friends, it's kind of interesting. When you said this should be our topic, the only person I could think of was a friend that I've had since a freshman year in college, and that's Roger Gagnon. And Roger was or is, he's still alive. He's still great. He's still a friend of mine. But he was my opposite in college, and I needed it. And it was he was an important person for me to help me get through college, because I went to engineering school. What's that?
I was gonna say, he was your opposite. He was like handsome and smart. What are you saying? What are you saying, John? Who's your opposite?
So yeah, so I should have described that. So as an opposite to me, like he was intellectual, he was smart. He was a straight A student for 4 years and he studied nuclear engineering, and he was a 4-year 4.0 GPA. The guy was brilliant. He had an incredible work ethic. He studied all the time. He knew how to get good grades. He knew how to perform. And that was just the polar opposite of me. I was like, I used to fly by the seat of my pants, do the best. I'd use common sense to solve problems. I wouldn't study. I'd wing it and try to get through things. And he helped teach me.
Now we know where Parker gets it.
100%. And he brought to me discipline and being able to study and putting the work in. Exactly. And what was funny was that he was a bit of a bookworm, and he didn't get out much. He didn't socialize.
Roommates?
We were roommates. Freshman
like the
year,
Odd Couple. You're like Oscar Madison and Felix Unger.
100%. Yeah. My freshman year, he had the room across the hall from me, and then sophomore, junior, senior, we were roommates. But yeah, I remember the first time he came over, he came into my room, and we were both in ROTC, and we had these things called our cover, which is like the white hat that you see Navy officers wear, and they gave it to us disassembled. Well, he comes into my room, and he's got all the parts, and he's like, "Do you have any idea how to make this?" And for me, I'm great with my hands. I've got a good common sense, mechanically inclined. I'm like, yeah, here, let me show you. Here you go. He's like, wow, so he thought I was smart, but I didn't have the book skills, and he had the book skills. I had the hands-on skills, and the other side of it was, uh, I was more social. I'd like to go out a lot. I had a lot of friends, and I kind of brought him into that world and sort of like, got him to see another side of what college is all about versus just studying and just getting good grades. So, like, all in all, I think he was good for me getting through college, and I was good for him getting through college. Like, I think we were good friends from that standpoint. And the thing is, like, we always were together. We went to Nuke Power School together. So we both got accepted in Nuke Power School. He's my roommate at Nuke Power School. And Nuke Power School, and I write about it in my new book, is just brutal. It's a terrible, terrible place. It's basically.
Wait. You have a new book?
I do, yeah.
What's that called, and where can people get it, John?
It's called All in the Same Boat, and you can get it at allinthesameboatbook.com. And by the way, for
Admiral
those
Jones from the East Indian Navy endorsed it, if I'm
you
not
did,
mistaken.
yes. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to throw it out to you. If you use the discount code DEEP at checkout, you get 20% off and free shipping for domestic shipping. So,
Beep.
and that you just got a code that not many people get.
Beep, BEEP. Is that what you said? Your mic cut out, John. I can't hear you.
Sorry.
Sorry, did you say
DEEP.
beep?
DEEP at checkout. Yeah, I'm sorry. My dogs went crazy. Like they're barking out there.
Deep. Oh,
Deep.
I thought you meant beep, like the ping from the radar in a sub.
No, deep, like deep leadership. Deep.
Beep, 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 beep. Okay, sorry. Deep. Gotcha. Deep.
Roger Gagnon, we went to Nuke Power School together. Again, I was just saying, it's like boot camp for geeks, right? They basically, we're all engineers that go there, and they just sort of harass you, give you a hard time. Only 60% get through Nuke Power School. Roger unfortunately didn't make it through. So he went into the conventional Navy. I went into the nuclear submarine Navy. And we kind of separated from there, but he went on to get his master's in mechanical engineering at Stanford University, went on to have all these great jobs as an engineer. He got married, had 2 children. But in January 2020, so last year, his wife was in the kitchen. She had a blood clot that went into her lungs, and she just died right there in his kitchen. So he lost his wife. Both of his children have Down syndrome, and they're non-communicative, so they don't speak. So he's now raising 2 children on his own. He lost his wife. And so, yeah. And what I like about Roger and what makes him the X factor is that, a lot of things like this would bring people down, right? So it would be hard to recover from losing your wife and now having to raise 2 children on your own. But Roger, every time I call him, he's upbeat, he's excited, he's got something new he's working on, he's happy, he's figured out how to manage the children and have a career, and he's been bringing in people to watch the children who are experts in dealing with Down syndrome, and he's just had a positive attitude about it, and his attitude's contagious. Every time you call him, he's happy, he's got a great story to tell you, and life is good, and I just think it puts it in perspective for me, right? I have, I'm married. I got 2 boys who are healthy. They're off in their lives and doing great things. I have it. There's nothing that I have that is, when I contrast it to the challenges that he has in his life, and he has a positive attitude through all of it. It's like, I think that's X factor, right? How do you, regardless of what is happening around you, how can you keep a positive outlook on life and just keep fighting for the next day? And Roger's a great example of that. And, it's funny because I had a departure from corporate America. One job I left, I didn't leave on my own. I was actually let go, and it was through a very political situation. It was very tough on me. And I recognized during that time is that I knew who my friends were. And a lot of my friends in corporate America sort of abandoned me. And because they feared their own jobs and what have you, because this was such a political thing. But Roger was one of the guys that just never abandoned me, never quit on me, always was there to be with, to boost me up, and during those tough times when you're questioning, like, what just happened. And when you're doing a career change that's not of your own making, that's a hard thing to deal with. So he was a guy that was always there. Yeah.
This is foreshadowing for you, Parker. Do you hear this? Like, that's what we call a veiled threat that John just issued to you. No, but seriously, John, like, I'm telling you, you find out out who your real friends are when you get fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most people professionally, like in your professional network, probably won't talk to you anymore. They'll ghost you because it's all about what you could do for them. You can't do that for them anymore because you're not in that position anymore. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's
hand the number of people the number of people that called me after I was fired, and my X Factor friend Jack Cayley was one of them.
Yeah. That's a true friend. Yeah, that's a true friend. And you realize you're true friends when things like that happen in your life. And it's funny. Someone once told me, and I think this is a really good story, that if you can get 6 friends at the time you die that can carry your casket, then you're doing a pretty good job. And so I've always thought that it's about the quality of friendships you have, and maybe not so much of the quantity of friendships. It's having those deep friendships with a few people that you can really that are going to be there for you, instead of having a long list of people that you owe something to, or they owe something to you, which isn't a relationship at all.
So 2 quick things, John. Number 1, Parker, you're going to be one of the pallbearers at my funeral, okay? Because you'll probably drop the casket, and then you'll be able to let me down one last time.
I knew that was coming.
Number 2, John, it's going to be in my will, and you'll be in charge of making sure this happens. That is an open casket service, and I'm placed in the casket face down, so my critics can kiss my ass one last time.
I like that. Do you still have critics, Coach Brew? Or
everybody's got haters. Well, if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong. That's my theory.
Yeah. I've got a few haters. I don't have too many, but I have a few haters a few trolls on Twitter I find occasionally.
We'll get to that in a second, but I just want to say one thing about your X Factor friend.
Yes.
He is the textbook definition of resilient. He really is.
Yeah, he is.
It's also a great lesson for everyone. It's a great lesson in instant perspective. We think we have it tough. We think we're dealing with adversity. We have no idea. Like, our lives are pretty easy compared to many.
Yeah, no, he definitely has a hard road. I make it a point to call him as much as I can, and he always is cheerful and upbeat and happy to talk to me and happy to tell me things that are going on. And he's actually working on he's a geek. I love him. He's just a super smart guy. He's got a 3D printer in his house. He's printing me he's making me a submarine for up on this bookshelf that's 3D printed of the USS Tennessee. He's working on it. I should have it at some point, but
I really think Joe Rogan should give you his old studio in Austin that he stopped using.
Yeah.
It's like a tube.
That was actually kind of cool. Yeah.
It'd be kind of like you could make it your own submarine studio. It's kind of like being in a sub, I imagine.
I know. Yeah. I got some more work to do here, but I'm just glad to have a place where I can just come and, plug my computer in, and I've got everything all set up versus, used to be in the office. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's good. By the way, if those of you who watch on YouTube or BrewTube, that is a silhouette of my grandfather's ship from World War II. It's the USS Frost, and he was kind of my reason why I ended up going in the Navy. He was my hero, and that was his ship, the silhouette of his ship, and my boat right behind it. So, kind of shout out to my grandfather too, who, by the way, he's featured in chapter 8 of my new book called All in the Same Boat at allinthesамeboatbook.com. But it's a great little story. Yeah.
What's our policy on free shout outs to relatives?
I think it's free. It's not. Yeah, he's passed away, so he's no longer with us. So he doesn't get any royalties or anything. He just in my memories.
Hell, I wrote the forward to your first book. I didn't get any royalties.
You did. Yeah, you did. By the way, that book is selling like crazy, Coach Brew. I don't know what is going on. I don't know what happened. Some people
Here's
say
what
when you,
happens. The algorithm, like when you
yeah,
publish a new book,
yeah,
it's just like a musician releases a new album. The people that discover that musician for the
yes.
first time through the new album are like, oh wow, they have more, and they buy their back catalog. So what you're experiencing are people who found you for the first time now buying your back catalog, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, I'd heard that was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to go as crazy as it has. Now the old book is selling more than the new book,
Not surprised.
and yeah, so it's kind
I
of
mean,
cool.
I didn't write the forward to the new book, you know.
Well, no one wrote the forward, so you don't have to be upset. I really was working hard to try to
I'm
get
not
it.
upset. I'm just proving that you're riding my coattails on the
No,
first book.
100%
So,
am.
yeah.
100%. No, I
So,
mean you've written 13 books on leadership performance. I think 14 now, and
well,
and
some of
I'm
them
just
are
trying to
like
keep.
work. A couple of them are like workbooks.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but I got to keep up. I'm way behind.
yeah. So, tell me about your Twitter beef that you have going on.
Oh, this is kind of a funny thing. So, for those of you who follow me on Twitter, and I've got quite a few followers on Twitter, I've got a beef going on, which with Coach Morgan Randall, which, by the way, yeah, is featured in one of your books, Coach Morgan Randall.
Is that at the Coach Randall?
It is, yes, he's at the Coach Randall. And he is a lacrosse coach from a small school. And we've got a beef going on. And I don't even know how it's got started originally, but every reply, every response, to each tweet has a country in it. So we are going back and forth using countries. And this has been going on for 4 days now. And it's getting, as the number of countries, as we start using up countries, it gets harder and harder to reply and respond to these tweets. So the responses are getting more creative and more fun. So if you have nothing better to do with your time, go take a look at the Twitter beef between myself and Coach Morgan Randall. And please chime in, because this thing is it's been going on for 4 days.
This is the guy who you had tweeted about llama antibodies being used to fight
Yeah, it started
that
exactly.
that word that we can't use for fear of being censored on social media. Llama
Yes,
antibodies being used to fight the pandy, so to
yes,
speak.
yes,
And he wrote, "You gone to be kidding me?" And then I think your reply was Namibian serious.
yes. And then he said,
Namibian.
Denmark, your territory. And I said, can you give me a break? And then
It's just going
Armenia,
on and
your
on and
friends,
on.
as weird as you, gonna check now. So if you want to just see uh to
It's got to
yeah,
be 100 of them at least by now.
it's been going a long time.
That's good.
So
Love it.
anyways, that's a kind of a fun thing. And by the way, Twitter, people can just sit there and yell at each other. And but if you're not using Twitter, you're not using Instagram, you're not using these as tools to learn and have a little fun sometimes, then if you're just looking to be offended and just shout at the world, I don't know, you're not going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
So
You
just use it to grow, use it to learn, use it to make connections, and use it to have some fun, have a few laughs.
and self promote too. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
people are afraid to sell or self promote or brand themselves. I primarily use social media for branding. Um, like you could put a post on Instagram of your product or service, a direct call to action on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, and it's going to get more impressions than if you for free
Yeah,
than if you paid thousands of dollars for a billboard on the side of the highway. And that's
yeah,
just fact.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is to be genuine with social media. I think a lot of people I see are trying to follow certain formulas and do things the same way, and everybody sort of starts sounding the same after a while because they're following the same sort of okay, you got to do this for the algorithm, but instead be genuine and be real and be authentic. And that's just like in real life. We don't want to be around fake friends, right? We want to be around our authentic friends.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And with that in mind, as we're wrapping things up, like, we don't ask for reviews. Give us a 5-star review. We don't do that. We ask for you to listen, and we want to earn a review. We want to earn the little thumbs up on YouTube. We want to earn a subscription. If you feel you've gained value from the information we've shared, whether it's this episode or any previous one, there's an overwhelming number. I looked at the data on our page. There's an overwhelming number of our viewers who aren't currently subscribed. And I'd like to think that maybe they just forgot to subscribe and they have us bookmarked or something. But we'd love to have you subscribe if you think it's worth your time. We've earned the right, or the privilege, I should say. Yeah, and if you have questions, comment. Share with people. You're getting this for free. You got to pay for John's pictures of his feet on OnlyFans. You're getting this podcast for free. So share it up with people you think could benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We don't do this for we don't do this for a lot of fame and glory and money. We do this because we care, and we want to help share lessons that we've learned over decades of running businesses, decades of being leaders in this industry. So yeah,
Parker does it for fame and fortune.
Yeah, I think he's more popular than we are, Coach.
I know he's more popular than we are. Look at him. His rugged, handsome, good looks. You're allowed to speak now, Parker. He's got his shirt unbuttoned. I mean, he looks like a young John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever right now.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're not watching on YouTube, head on over, take a look at him. You're probably going to want to applaud and throw money at the kid. But yeah, we're so fortunate and blessed to have Parker on our team.
Some people might like Magic Mike. We got Magic Parker over here.
Prince Parker.
Prince Parker.
Or is it? No, oh, it's Princess Parker. Sorry.
Princess. Is that an X Factor?
2021. He can identify as whatever he wants.
Okay.
That's all I got for you today, John.
That's all I got as well. So go ahead and buy you some Bottom Gun coffee. Go to bottomguncoffee.com, our sponsors, and get some of that coffee. Get some pumpkin spice if you want to, but Morning Blend's my favorite. Go ahead and get some and be different or be invisible, and have a great day.
And I want to remind everybody one thing. It's my public service announcement. If you wake up tomorrow morning in a bad mood bitching about your life, just remember, you could be running for the last plane out of Kabul airport in Afghanistan. So remember, when they play our national anthem at some meaningless, trivial sporting event that you purchased an overpriced ticket to, and you're drinking a $12 domestic beer and basking in the safety our great country provides you, stand up, pull up your freaking pants, take your hat off, place your hand over your heart, and appreciate the sacrifices others have given that let you enjoy this freedom. God bless America. God bless you, Jon Rennie. God bless you, Parker. I'm out.
This is P1 listener Sarah Swenson, and you're listening to the X Factor Podcast, the place I go each week to find recommendations for other podcasts.